Welcome to the Hard Water Fishing Show. Jeff and Jason talk tactics, gear, and ice fishing legends.
We are alive, season 8, episode 6. It is the second week of December 2024, and we're on the ice, man.
Yeah, we both have fishing reports today.
We do. We have fishing reports. We've got a great topic. We talked with Jeffrey David Moreau. Did I say that right?
Yeah, he goes
Yeah.
by Jeff, basically, which gets
Jeff.
a little confusing.
Guy Jeff,
Yes.
not this Jeff, but a different fish catching Jeff. And
Yes.
he's been guiding since he was 13 on Eagle Lake in Ontario, Canada. And I could have talked to that dude for hours. So we
For
might
sure.
have to have him back on. He's super knowledgeable fellow, just really, really nice guy. And so that'll be coming up later in the show. We're going to have fishing reports. We're going to talk about ice fishing stuff. We got some random notes. We've got some topics, show business. We got all the stuff tonight, man. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, for sure.
And we got beer.
Oh, I forgot to get my beer, but guess what?
That's a party. Oh, you're
But
at
guess
your
where I
bar.
am? I'm in the bar, so I can just go get my beer right there.
This feels like a setup. I feel like you planned that. That was really cheesy, dude.
I moved out of my office to other recording location, just so I could have my beer in the fridge.
I understand. No, I think that's good.
So what do you got, Jay? What do you have?
Well, why don't you go first?
Oh, I got to go get in the fridge. Hold on.
All right.
Here we go. Here's what we got. Shell's Snowstorm.
That's really interesting.
Oh, no. All right. A storied legacy of the fine beers. I love Shell's beer. Says there's a story in every drop. I don't know that I can read this. It's 6.2% alcohol. It's Bavarian style red lager. And there is a story on there, but I can't read this. It's too small. Oh, maybe. As every Midwesterner knows, no two snowstorms are alike. So change it up every year because showcases our ability to adapt to the time. So maybe if I had one last year, it's not the same. Back to the olden days, it was, oh my gosh, this is so small. A feat to take our beer by wagon to the local establishments. Especially in the dead of winter, we had to find inventive ways to make sure that the beer arrived and our patrons didn't run the well dry. Well, that can happen. This meant long hauls and even leaving beer unattended at the bottom of a hill when it was too heavy for horses to pull it up one trip. So you could find this beer at the bottom of a hill in the Midwest. So here we go.
New Ulm, Minnesota.
Yeah. Yum. Good wintry beer.
A good wintry beer.
What do you got? You made an intrigue when I opened what I opened. So now I'm wondering, like,
Yeah. So
what do you got?
I have a fine grain belt beer.
Ah, the Northeast.
The Northeast. I don't know if that's how you say it, but that's on Northeast.
Northeast. Yep, that's how you say
And
it.
it's amber in color, full of flavor, and it was an addition to the grain belt line of products at Shell's Brewery.
Yeah.
So I think it's the same manufacturer as what you drank, right?
It is. It is the same manufacturer.
Yeah. A light maltiness and soft hop bitterness makes this smooth lager extra crushable. So
Yum.
that's what I got tonight.
Can you open it?
Yeah, I can open it. Yeah,
That
just
sounded
like that.
really good. Sounded really good.
Oh yeah. Yep, that's a good beer.
So I have a story behind this. So
Hit me with it.
Okay, so Schmidt Brewery is in St. Paul. I toured it when I was in college. It's no longer a brewery. I don't know what it does anymore, but it used to be a brewery. And they used to make beers like Pig's Eye and some other kind of beers like Northeast. And so you could go there, and we went on a tour, and you could see how they made it. And it was a big brewery, big old like 1800s brewery. And then after the tour was done, you go in the basement, and they had this like German looking old style like beer hall. I mean, like nothing I've seen ever before. Can't believe nobody turned it into a restaurant or something, but it was really cool. And you could go down there and sample their beers after you saw them made. And I've never been to a lot of beer tours, but it was cool to see. And that's originally where Schmidt Brewing used to be until they got bought out and closed down because they couldn't keep the plant open because it was too expensive. And now it's owned by Shells. But yeah, I've been there. It was cool to see it brewed. Not that particular beer, but a beer like 30 years ago or something.
Thanks for sharing, Jeff. That was a great story.
There you go. See? All right. Are we talking about ice fishing or beer? I don't know.
Moving on, moving on. Go ahead, Jeff. You want to talk about patrons?
Patrons, yeah, we want to thank Cole K, who became a new patron at our legend level this week. So thank you for supporting the show, and it's really awesome. I mean, there's not much else I can say. I mean, it's great when somebody decides to support the show, and it keeps us paying for all the things that it costs to produce the podcast. We run a pretty tight ship here, but it's still things cost money. So we thank people for doing that. And to all
Absolutely.
of our patrons. So cheers to Cole. Gotta have a cheers, Jay.
Cheers, man.
Cheers. Cheers, thank you. Chink. Fishing report. All right, Jay. I know you have one and I know you're excited to talk about it. So why don't you kick us off with fishing report?
So there I was, minding my own business. And we went fishing on a little lake up by the cabin.
The lake next to Nunya Lake? It was like next to Nunya Lake?
Yeah. Nondescript lake. Not the lake
Nondescript.
my cabin's on, but just some other lake.
Yes.
And I was with my younger brother who likes to fish swampy, shallow, God-forsaken, coffee-stained lakes. And he goes, Jason, there are no walleyes in this lake. Do not look for walleye. Because he knows I have a habit of looking for the walleye. If there's one walleye on that report, I'm going to go look for it, find it and eat it. And so he goes, there's none in here. Do not look for them. They do not exist. Just go fish for crappies. And I'm like, yeah, bro, I got you. I'm with you, man. So we get set up. Matt's still screwing around, farting around, doing whatever Matt does.
Yeah.
And I sit down. I drill my hole. Well, I drilled my hole, and then I sat down. And I jigged about 4 minutes and pulled up a nice 16-inch walleye.
So the only walleye in the lake found you is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we found each other. It was a match. And that's the only one I caught all day, but it was nice to get that out of the way so I didn't have to look for it the rest of the day. So we caught that. We caught some crappies the first day. Nothing of size, but it was great out on the ice. We had a lot of fun on Saturday. Matt had bought a Panoptics.
Ooh,
and so we were able to play with that, and we were kind of I think you can kind of spin yourself in circles with that thing, because once we figured out a little bit how to run it, you could see a fish and we're like, ooh, what's that? So we go drill a hole and then it would swim off, and then you have to drill another hole, and then you'd chase it around the lake, and so I don't know, I think it helps you. I think all weekend we maybe attributed like 3 fish to the Panoptics.
Okay.
Where we think, we found a fish, we drilled a hole, and we caught the fish. We're still learning how to use it. And but I think where we're at on it now is, depending on how you think about it or how you use it, it may keep you in a subpar spot longer. Because you can see fish. You're like, okay, well, maybe I'll go over here or go over here, or it moved off. I don't know. I don't know. Certainly can see the merit in pan fishing with one. It was fun. It added a little bit more excitement to the day. And since I didn't pay for it, I'm perfectly fine with it.
Yeah. I mean, it could be too that, this is his first foray with the live scope, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're just getting, and it came with, he didn't have any of the accoutrements. The only thing he really upgraded was his battery. And so our buddy Muggs was also with us, and he had one, and he had the Summit pole for the transducer, and hands down a better rig that way. Like the base pole that comes with that thing, which for the amount of money, I think they could do better. The transducer doesn't detach. The base is kind of wonky. It's just kind of all wobbly, and compared to the Summit pole, which was way, way better.
I don't think I've seen anybody that buys one of those that runs the pole that comes with it. Like, I don't even know why they bought it.
Matt will. I think Matt probably will. He's just like that. That's probably how he'll roll. And so Sunday, so what we're using. So on Saturday, the walleye caught on a slab seeker,
Of course. Now, is that because that's what you're fishing with, or is that
Yellow
because
and
what was
orange.
working? Yeah.
That is what was tied on the rod. That was tied on the rod last year when I started fishing because it's the first time out. And it's also my one that only has two hooks of the original treble hook because one got stuck and broke off. And I need to put a new hook on that. But I thought, well, we'll
You
see if it
have
catches
two
fish.
hooks, not
I have
three.
two hooks of the treble, yeah. Because I got to replace the treble hook. And I just, you don't get around to things, even
Or you
though
could
I
pull
should.
another lure, tie it on.
Yeah, but I could, but I don't have another one of this color.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I like this color and in fact that's the only lure I used all weekend. And well, that I caught fish with. I actually
Yeah.
changed lures on my other pole several times, but unfortunately this is the one that kept catching fish, or fortunately. So the walleye was on full minnow, crappie minnow though.
Sure.
And then crappies that I caught throughout the rest of the weekend were on that and a minnow head.
So
So
couple notes. The first one is, so it sounds like, have you ever seen the movie The Holiday?
hmm,
It's a
maybe.
Christmas movie. Aaron watches it like 100 times a Christmas. It's got the girl from Titanic and then Jack Black in it, and it's like a love story kind of thing.
Okay.
But anyways, so it's about making a movie and they're in Hollywood, and there's a point to what I'm telling you eventually here. But they
Yeah, I'm waiting.
have, yeah, so there's a producer, an old producer that's in there, and he describes in old movies when two people meet, they have a meet cute, right? Like it's always some kind of like cute way to meet. But I think you and your walleye had a meet cute on the ice.
What in the heck are you talking about?
Because you went to the lake and there was only one walleye and you on the lake that connected when you got there. So that was your meet cute for your walleye.
I ate it last night. Does that mean anything?
Well, was it good? I don't know. I don't know what that says about that
It
story, but
was for me. I don't know that it had the same experience. There, you do take that one where you want to go. All right.
so you had a
So
good time. You were on the ice. You caught
yes,
a walleye. You caught some
yes.
crappies.
And then on Sunday we went to a new lake we'd never fished and pounded out some more crappies. How we found that spot to fish is we followed the tracks from people the day before and started there, and then adjusted kind of from where they had started
Yeah.
because we'd never fished the lake. And it was just a bowl. It was one like kind of a shallow
Yeah.
bowl lake. So there's some of those are a little harder to figure out at first because there's not like obvious structure. And it was super foggy. I have no idea what that lake looks like. Came out from landing, you could see about 100 yards. We followed the fog about 300 yards into the fog, set up,
Yep.
caught fish, fished till about 2, packed up, went home. I couldn't tell you one feature of that lake other than what the landing looked like.
Huh. Wow.
I was catching them on slab seeker with the two hooks and a minnow head. Little bro was catching them on actually a smaller jig, like a jigging spoon
Okay.
with waxies. So we were using,
Okay.
like, he was
Different.
using a pretty small presentation and I was using a pretty big presentation, and we were
And
both catching them. But
you were in a
they were pretty
stained lake.
aggressive on Sunday.
You were
Different
in a
lake. What's that?
stained lake.
Stained, completely bog stained again. Yeah. Both lakes, both days were bog stained.
Couple things that relate to maybe some upcoming topics here in the show is Jason Mitchell had an article and he talked about stained lakes and how you maybe use different colors, brighter. I would say loud. I'm interpreting a little bit, but like when you're on those stained lakes, use something brighter and louder and bigger rather than smaller, especially if the fish are aggressive. Because, on clear lakes, they can be really spooky and hard to find. So those are harder to get to, basically.
Yeah, like on Saturday, what was interesting, you'd think early ice fish should be more aggressive. So on that
Yeah.
stained lake, I did try a buckshot, small buckshot for
Yeah.
crappies. And with the sonar, with the live scope, you could actually see that like when I started using that, they left. Like
Oh.
they did not like
Oh.
that rattle at all. They were like, later alligator. And so I think, that slab seeker's got just some two little flashy spoon, little tiny blades on it.
Yep.
I don't know, and I'm sure that makes some sort of just enough clicking sound, that it seemed to want them to come in. But they were not responding to loud baits.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it kind of goes against what I was saying a little
it
bit.
does a little. But I think there's no hard and that's the thing about fishing that makes it fun is there is no hard and fast rule. There's like it's the 80/20. It's the 80-20 rule. 20%
Yeah.
of the time it doesn't work, 80% of the time it does.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm not going to argue with what Jason Mitchell says. If he says that's the deal,
Yeah.
that take that to the bank. I'm just telling you what my experience was at that little time on that little day.
Yeah. He was more saying he was contrasting it against fishing in a very clear lakes early ice where like
Yeah.
you have to be really careful. And he talked about live scope too, and he said they see the same thing. You go out there, drill a hole, which doesn't sound that noisy, but make a bunch of noise, walk around, which you have to walk around, and you can see the fish like scurry away. And then once you kind of chill out and let the area cool off, you can go in there and see the fish are back. So
I
it's just
agree completely. We could definitely tell, especially in those shallower lakes, the fish were reacting to our moving around on top of the ice.
which is interesting to me because how many times were we told back in the Vexlar days, back in the day, not that I even have these tools, but
Back in the day.
yeah, back in the day, where, oh, well, there's no fish in this hole because I'm not marking one. Move on to the next hole. Well, guess what? If you scared the fish away by drilling the hole and walking over there, you're going to walk that lake all day and never see a fish because every hole will not have a fish in it because you scared them away.
But do you also remember when we used to run the snowmobile around the tip ups and you get a flag?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
I don't
I
know.
think you would, because you'd get the fish, you get them
Yeah,
moving,
yep.
and then they'd, ooh, a snag.
I know.
So
Yeah.
that's the fishing report. We had a good time. Nothing really hit big on tip ups, no northerns, nothing like that. But
Cool.
it was absolutely awesome to be out. Weather was beautiful. By beautiful, I mean it was like 20 degrees on Saturday
Oh,
and like freezing rain a little bit on Sunday, but
hmm,
it wasn't hot, it wasn't cold. It wasn't cold at all. And we had about 7 to 8 inches of ice.
okay.
So not a lot considering how far north we were. But we had one lake had a couple inches of snow on it. The other lake had about 6 inches of snow on it.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the story. Give me yours, Jeff. What do you
All
got?
right. So here's what we got. I also went fishing. Now you were fishing this last weekend. We haven't recorded together. We had an interview that you'll be hearing we did last week, but we didn't record together, like talk about fishing.
I know.
And I was out the week before. We in my perfect world, I would have a podcast out every week, but we don't live in that perfect world. We just don't. Like, and we want to go fishing too, right? You got to fit everything in, and we got life. Anyways, so we didn't go. I went out the weekend before, so it was a little earlier ice, but so I watched the Minnesota Vikings beat up on Kirk Cousins a bit, and then at 3 o'clock I went out and we went to this local lake by my house and was targeting northerns, sunnies, and crappies. So I've been to this lake before. It's a small northern crappie lake, right? Like it actually reminds me of a lot of your cabin, right? It's probably
Mhm.
smaller but similar kind of ecosystem, right? Like that kind of thing where it's shallow, it's has northerns, has crappies, has sunnies, that kind of lake. I've caught a bunch of fish. Like Noah, who came with me, was like, "Dad, this is the lake where we caught those fish." I'm like, "Yep, we're going back to the same spot, same time of year, will be perfect." And we caught one, but it was a nice sunny. I mean, I let him reel it in. Yeah, but it was still a good day. I mean, I hung out at home. I got to hop down the road. We were on the lake, got some fish, so it was a good day.
That's awesome.
Like you, we had a really nice day. It was 40 degrees outside,
It was
and
warm.
so before the Vikings game, I had gone out there and I had chiseled. I kind of checked the ice because it was still. I mean, this is 2 weeks ago, almost a week and a half ago, and I'm like, I don't know how the ice is. And so the morning, I went out there and there's 6 inches of good ice. Took my little chisely thing and went out there. After the Vikings game, after 40-degree weather, there was this coat of water on top of the ice. Or it had melted just on the top. I mean, there's still plenty safe, but it was kind of a mess. So we went out there and it was super slick, no snow, nothing. Uh, and so I brought my ice cleats, thank goodness, because it would have been real, real bad out there. I don't know if you used ice cleats this weekend, Jay.
No, we didn't need to because we had good snow cover.
Okay, yeah. Even here
Yep.
right now, you need it. I mean, it's important. So talking about tactics, we were super lightweight, no shelter. It was a 40-degree day. There's no reason to sit in the shack. We just went out there with an auger. I had some shiners, golden shiners, which is always nice to get for my tip ups, and then I had some waxies and Euro larva for the panfish. and use the slab seeker. I think we're gonna have to start asking for Widowmaker to give us some kind of kickback because we keep on talking about the slab seeker. I mean,
Yes, we got to stop talking about that lure.
it's been my favorite. I bought a bunch of them when I was at the ice show. Oh, I did we even talk about it? I went to the ice show since last time we've talked too. Oh my gosh, so many things.
We're gonna have to do another we're gonna have to do one more episode after this. Just call it the catch-up episode.
The catch-up episode. And so Noah caught one, or I caught one and he didn't. And oh, I'm wrong. He was using the slab seeker, which did not catch a fish. I was using it's called a Snowdrop XL
Hmm.
by Clam. So it's just a tungsten jig. We were just fishing with tungsten. But if anybody knows what we're talking about there. But the nice thing about this jig is it has like it almost looks like candied or something. It's got these little sparkly things. They must dip the paint in something. So it's got little sparklies, but it's just a really basic jig. And I just put a waxy on there. The fish were pretty finicky, so orange and green color. So a couple other notes about my outing. Okay, maybe I have a half dozen notes, but we'll get through these.
I've never
Buckle
seen you
up.
ever just have a couple of notes.
I come back from these adventures and I sit down and write everything down right away.
I know.
That's just how I dump my
That-
brain out to remember.
No, I think it's great that you do that.
So first thought, it's really about getting out there. It's about the journey, not the destination.
Yes.
It always is. Even, you fishing with your brother. I mean, I'm out there with my son. I mean, yeah, I would have liked to catch more fish, but it was a warm, comfortable day. I mean, just super awesome. I just really been enjoying it too because not all of my children have gotten to fishing, and I think you've experienced this too, Jason.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But Noah, I feel like I've got him hooked. I feel like we're there, right? I'm like,
You're on the
one out of
cusp at any
three.
rate.
Yeah, might have to keep feeding the it a little bit more. Maybe we're going up to Lake of the Woods in January. I think that'll put us over the edge. I'm pretty sure. So, we get to drive out with Kurt's 4-tracked Blazer and out into Lake of the Woods. I mean, if that doesn't do it, nothing does. But had my new rod and reel out for the first time. I got a new tune-up custom rod, and then I bought a Dio reel with a folding handle. Super awesome, except rod was perfect. The reel, I've never had this happen before. Brand new reel out of the box. It's got this folding handle. It's like a Dio reel. The reverse doesn't work. At first I thought, oh, the clicker thing, right? So you can either do free spin or stop. There's no stop. There's only free spin.
Oh, that's no good.
So
there's no switch on it?
There's a switch. And if you turn it either way, no stoppy.
Oh, that's got to go back, man.
I know, but I bought it from, I'm not beating up on the tune-up custom guys. I'm sure they have the rod reel combos. I just bought it that way, right? It's not like it's a Dio reel. But
yeah, but I bet you could contact Daiwa themselves and they'd take care of it.
Yeah. But I used it because I wanted to use my new rod. And this was the only reel I had. And I just spooled the line up and I'm like, it doesn't work. Oh. So I'm trying to get the fish out of the water and the fish goes back down.
Oh no.
Anyway.
No, but you should absolutely warranty that thing, man.
I know. I'll have to get around to it. I was annoyed though. You're just like, oh, the rod was super awesome. The reel works well. It just doesn't stop. The next thing, self-sealing tape. Remember, I've been on this journey of self-sealing tape for putting the reel on. So I looked at the clam wrap stuff that a couple listeners had suggested, and it's the same stuff, right? You can just tell it's the self-sealing tape that I already have. I mean, I can just tell.
Okay.
It's not labeled clam, but I can tell by the way it looks. It's the same stuff. So I'm like, I must be doing something wrong. So what I did, and it worked way better, because before my reel was going to fall off, you have to put it on super tight. Like you stretch it and really crank it on there. Like I think I had it on too loose. You have to really stretch that self-sealing silicone tape or whatever it's called. The clam version is the same thing. It wasn't like the clam one was expensive. I just didn't buy the clam brand because I already had some sitting at home.
You already had it, yeah.
So yeah. So that was just kind of we've talked about that in the show that, hey, this doesn't work very well. I changed my tune on that because it seemed to work. At least for the one sunfish I caught. We'll see as things go on. When I get a 29-inch walleye, we'll see how it goes. But anyways, because it is annoying. The one time it happened to me where the reel was going to pull off the rod. I mean, that was super annoying. Finicky fish are hard for inexperienced fishermen to catch. Just the way it is. I always feel bad. Noah's out there. It's just super
Yeah.
hard. I don't
Did
know
he
how to
did
get
he
around
try
that.
bobber?
We didn't have a bobber on. We only got a couple nibbles, but they were just like,
See, I wonder sometimes if that's not the way to go for finicky fish is a bobber.
yeah, yeah,
Because then like somebody inexperienced, they have that visual indicator of the bobber
yeah.
versus trying to judge like when to set the hook otherwise.
And I mean, I'm an experienced person, and we still get it wrong, like because you don't know how the fish are biting. Sometimes you have to hit it the minute you get a nibble, and sometimes you have to let them suck it in, and you don't know until you kind of figure it out. And but for inexperienced people, I think you kind of learn that 'cause you're like, okay, this didn't work. This has worked. You have a couple hook sets in your arsenal. When you're new, you don't know, and I think that's hard.
It's interesting. Matt and Muggs, Matt specifically was watching me jig this weekend, and he's like, "Man, you really jig aggressively." I'm like, "Yeah, of course." Especially when I don't see anything.
Yeah,
Like if I don't have a fish in the general vicinity, I'm like banging that thing on the ground, and I'm
yeah,
moving it. Now and then when a fish comes in, I react kind of accordingly to how a fish.
right.
If it's coming in hard, you keep going because it's going to slam it anyway. And if it holds up, then you change your tune a bit
Yep.
and do things a little differently. But yeah, it's finicky fish are different, and I think it's how you read the graph and how what kind of presentation you got going, and then that first one, like I missed my first
Yeah,
fish. I mean, I might have maybe it was the same fish I ended up catching, but the first one you kind of peed down your leg a little bit. You're like, oh my God. And then
yeah,
you miss it because you got all
yep,
excited because you felt
yep.
it. So, so you gotta, you do that open water too, that first one open
Hmm.
water. I always miss that first hook set,
Yeah.
man. It's just like, oh fish. And then, you miss it. So it's a thing.
And you and I have never really talked about that. I'm sure we do it differently, but I have a way, and I think it works. You have a way. Maybe it works. I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't say it works all the time, but when it works,
No.
it's 100%.
But I will say if you miss one and do the same thing over and over again, then you're doing it wrong, right? You got to adjust yourself to the
Yeah.
fish. So
I just blame it on missing one hook.
there you go. Or you could replace a hook. You could
I
replace a hook
could.
in a what
I
do you call
could.
it? So you have a treble hook because it's
The
three.
double.
It's a double hook.
The
Okay, you have a
double hook.
double hook. I've actually seen those before, but I broke mine before too. Okay, so my next thing I thought about was even when it's warm, you get cold. We were outside. It was 40 degrees, but we were standing in the water. Not a lot of water, but it was wet everywhere because it had melted. And, still get cold. Um,
I like 20 degrees.
yeah.
15 to
Yep.
24
Right.
degrees. I love ice fishing because
Right.
everything's like usually pretty dry,
Yep.
you know. Um, Colder than that, hotter than that, mid
Yeah.
80s, I don't like for ice fishing.
Mid-80s,
Just
right?
right over
Yeah.
his head, boys and girls.
First time you go ice fishing is hard. It just is. You get better at it throughout the season, but the first time you're
I,
missing stuff. And no matter how many times you pack and think you're ready, you miss stuff.
I only was missing one thing. I don't know why. My pliers was not in my bag.
Mine wasn't either.
And I have no idea why. Like, why would it have left? Well, I must have grabbed it like
Put it in your
open
boat.
water.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got probably four of them in my boat. But I'm like, why? I was
Yeah.
fishing with two people, so they had it. But other than that, I was actually feeling pretty good
Hmm.
about my level of organization.
Well, I forgot chairs.
I did not, but I did. New to my gear this year is a 6 gallon pail and a little swivel seat.
Sure.
And I threw that in my flip over shack. So
Okay.
when I hole hop,
Yeah.
and boy, do it that's 6 gallon compared to a 5 gallon
Mhm.
for a taller guy with,
Yeah.
it's easier to get up, super comfortable.
Okay.
I would highly recommend the 6 gallon over the 5 gallon. It gives you a little extra height. It's easier to get up and down. Now, the downside is it's further to bend over. I could navigate that.
But there's a sweet spot there too, right? Because if you're
It
too
was
far, you're
fun.
bending over. Yeah, I think it sounds perfect.
Yeah. No, it worked great. I was really happy with that upgrade. Um, I don't think I'd fished with my shack since I made the adjustments last year
Oh,
to the poles on
seats.
my clam Kenai.
Yeah,
So anybody that has a Kenai will know that the supports for the seat run back to front, front to back,
north
and
south.
they're in the center, north south, east west, depends on how you look at it. Anyway, straight up and down,
No.
front to back, back to front. So what I did is I took them off and I cut them and set them sideways. So now they're side to side.
Sure.
And I remounted the seat and I moved them just far enough apart where my flasher can go between them. So slide the
Mhm.
seat to the side, put the flasher underneath. So it's a nice spot for the flasher. And then what that did is it opened up the whole back of the shack to put stuff. So like my bucket could go in there, my heater, everything fit, and
Right.
it goes in a little pile, which I prefer just the pile method of things versus like trying to build organizational structures, just throw it in because it's
Yeah.
quicker. And the beauty of it is for a Kenai is when those poles are front to back, you cannot set a bucket in there.
Okay.
It does not fit. It's like at an angle and it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy with that very simple modification I made, and it worked great.
Sweet.
And if I ever owned a different clam Kenai, I would. I did sell my clam Nanook
Look.
over the weekend. That went down the road, got that sold. So that went into the future gear fund.
I had a few things I was going to sell and I didn't get around to them, but my 10-inch metal auger, because now they got rid of my wheelhouse. I don't really need that
Yeah,
anymore.
you don't need that.
I mean, I'm not going to drag that sucker around, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. So, um,
So I didn't tell you about an auger. So Muggsy, who
oh
fished with
yeah,
us, had the brand new Eskimo E40.
yep,
Nice auger. Loved it. Um, it's quick. The ice wasn't real thick, so it's kind of hard to
yeah,
ascertain that, but it certainly worked well. Sharp blades, of course. It's got the same auger as it's a pistol bit style auger.
yeah.
It's identical really to the pistol bit from that perspective. Dude, you could take that auger and I could hold it on two of my
Yeah.
fingers like this.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
not like and
Yeah.
seriously and not like be like, oh yeah, I can hold it. Like it was just boom. I mean
Yeah.
it was light, man. Like
Hmm.
there was no weight to that thing. Um, it was a good auger. It was
Awesome.
solid feeling, like the handle. I don't know what kind, if it's a metal or a composite, or it looked composite, but it kind of didn't. So I don't know if it's like a cast or it's probably
Hmm.
composite. But man, it was simple. It didn't have a lot of extra
Yeah.
plastic stuff hanging off of it, like to make it aesthetic. It just was
Cooler. Yeah.
basic. It was functional. It was lighter than heck, and the handles on it too have a small throw to them. So
Sure.
like it's pretty narrow. So like from a space perspective in a shack or a sled,
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't have the Ion side by side with it, but it was good. I liked it a lot.
From my experience with those, I would trade in my Strike Master tomorrow for one of those. Well, they wouldn't give me maybe my 5-year-old Strike Master versus the brand new Ice Logger, but I think I would trade it in. But the problem, I still have a little hesitation only because the batteries that I have been so good, and I've seen other people have problems with them. And those are the same
Yeah.
batteries as Ion. Now I don't know. I'm assuming you had no problems when you were out there.
No, I mean, as far as like temperature and batteries, I couldn't tell you like,
Right. Okay.
from that perspective. The other thing I would say about your problem is it's very hard to trade a thing that's working well
Right.
and ooh, it's a little heavy. Well, just go to CrossFit a couple more days a week,
I
dude.
know exactly.
I mean, so it's hard when what you have functions to trade
Yeah.
in
I mean, you're
for
talking
something else.
right. You're talking. It's not even like a jump from gas to electric. You're talking. You're jumping from like electric to a little better electric. I mean, it's not like light years ahead. It's
Yeah.
just better, right?
Yeah. I
So,
mean, it's really it'd be really hard. I would have a hard time upgrading if I was in your position.
Yeah. Yeah. But then the challenge is, and we'll get off augers. I don't know why we've been talking about augers so much this year. I think,
We've been on an auger thing.
yeah, but I thought about getting the lightweight bit for my Strike Master because they have them, right? But right now you can buy a 24 volt with the head unit and a battery for 270. And I'm like, the bits are like over 200. And I'm like, why am I gonna then you go in this flow of like, I might as well just buy a 24 volt if they're just as cheap as buying the auger and they're real close. Uh, it, I don't know. So I'm stuck. I'm
Yeah,
like,
they didn't have an early season auger and a late season auger.
I would, and I've thought about that too, but I haven't pulled the trigger on that. I don't know. Anyways, we're in gear.
You have other things on your list
I
before
do.
you get to that.
I also, one of the things I forgot was lights, flashlights. It's kind of a little dark out there.
Oh
We may
yeah.
do. We may do. I have lights on my shuttle, and I had a light flashlight in the truck that was dead, so that didn't help. But we had enough light to make it through. And I'm like, I thought I had a headlamp in the truck. Nope, it's not there. When I got back in the truck, I'm like, oh, here it is. so anyways,
So
don't
your
forget light.
bubbler broke. I'm looking at your list. Your bubbler broke.
Yeah, so I got these shiners because they have no will to live, and I actually want a new bucket too, like a bait bucket. I love your 7.5 quart clam, or not clam. What is that?
Angle.
7. Ingle.
Angle.
You're set up for bucket because I walked out there and I've got this 13 quart free bowl.
It's huge. Yeah.
It's like carrying a Yeti cooler out there. It's so big. And I got 6 shiners, right? I mean, it's kind of dumb, but it has the bubbler and I plugged it in and to keep my shiners alive during the Vikings game because I don't want them to die because the hardware store closes on Sunday early, so you can't get the bait. And I go back out there later and it's dead. I had it plugged into the wall. It wasn't a battery situation. Like it's plugged into the wall and it just died. And it's those crappy whatever things. You've got that really nice advanced 2-speed DC bubbler situation with your Angle cooler. So
What are you talking about?
didn't you get the new bubbler for your Angle cooler last year?
Oh, the lithium one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
But
you've
that's
got the
not
nice,
standard. That's like a whole upgrade deal.
you can buy them. So it's $60 with the old or $100 with the new,
So
110.
Muggs bought, or that was fishing with us this weekend, a brand new angle bait cooler.
Yeah.
The bubbler didn't make it 24 hours.
Yeah.
It just quit work. I mean, it'd make noise, but not pumping any air. Like
Yeah.
literally not 24 hours. Those things are just trash. So,
Well,
I mean, if you buy the angle bait cooler, I mean, I would just get the $100 one because,
yeah.
I mean, I guess it's kind of a wash. I think you do save a little bit money on buying the 60 and then going back later.
Like 10
But
bucks.
that it's just trash. Like,
I know.
I mean, and it's been trash for years.
Well, I remember we took one apart, yours or Ole's or somebody's.
I think Oli
and
did.
the pump has this little like silicone thing that holds the air as it pumps. And it's like a cone. So like there's like a little piece of silicone and it just pops off. And so you can pull it apart and put the silicone back on. Like it's just like a rubber boot, like a silicone boot.
Okay.
And so you can put it on there because I think that's how we fixed yours. But it's just going to fall off again in another
It's
day.
gonna fall off. Yeah.
I mean, you're going to go across the lake and the thing's going to bounce around and it's going to be so. It's
Gonna be
almost not
trash.
worth it. I was kind
No,
of
it's just
scoping
not.
Facebook Marketplace to find a cheap one that was broken, so I could just get the cooler and then buy the other thing. I don't know. I didn't find one though. So, but
Yeah.
7.5 is the jam. I really want one like you have. Thing's sweet.
It's a perfect size for ice fishing.
It is. All right, so that's fishing. We better get moving here because
We better do show business and fact checks here quick.
yeah. Okay, so show business. You want to cover show business, Jay?
Sure. Best places to interact with us are on social media, Instagram and Facebook. You can find us on our website, hardwatershow.com. Just been busy improving that as our resident technical expert. You can find us on the YouTube. We've been doing more YouTube stuff and some YouTube shorts. You can email us at hardwatershow@gmail.com. We're on X at Hardwater Show, and we're also on Threads at Hardwater Show, though we're not doing a lot with that. Yeah, that's show business. Send us an email. We've been getting a few submissions from the website.
Yeah, a
You
bunch.
guys have sent in a couple of legends, which we appreciate. We haven't used them yet, but we've got them in our back pocket. We will absolutely use them before the end of the season. And we appreciate you sending those in. We love to hear from you guys. I will just, from a point of admission, I would say when you submit things on the form, which I love, it's not easy. Like there's an extra step to reply to you. Like I've got to cut and paste your email. And so because of that step, it's harder to do. And so I probably am not as good at replying there than I am on other things. So if you just want to share information, that's a great format to do it. If you're looking for a response, the response from that format may not be as quick just because it's a whole extra step. So like when you're on your phone, I read a lot of email on my phone. It's harder to cut and paste emails and do
Yeah,
things that way.
we have gotten a bunch of submissions there, and I think we have one of those good problems, Jay. I think we have enough people kind of interacting with us that I wouldn't say I'm struggling to keep up, but certainly there's a lot of, we're in deep ice fishing season and there's a lot of stuff going on. So
There is.
even if we
And
don't get
so
back to you, we read it pretty quickly usually. Just sometimes it might take us a little bit to get back to you if you haven't heard from us.
Yep. And sometimes we'll bring it into a future show, maybe a month later or 2 months later or a year later from when we got it. Because we do, depending on what our content we have, that particular show, we may pull stuff in. So we do very much appreciate when you send us stuff. So please keep doing that. We have a fact check, Jeff. How do we both kind of screwed the pooch on this beer deal?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I got multiple. So I'm not
We
even
just, I
sure
don't
if
know
I'm
why
clear.
you were saying something and I was kind of going with it and I should have, I'm like, I don't know if you're right. Why don't you share what you screwed up, Jeff?
Well, I'm not even sure if I'm totally clear on it yet. So it's clear what was screwed up is there's a beer and it's called Miller Genuine Draft, but there's
And
like
MGD,
MGD, and I thought they were the same thing, but I'm
they are
thinking that
not.
they're
They're
not.
not. Michelob Golden Draft is different than Miller Genuine Draft. So it's Miller Genuine and Michelob. I better be getting this right or I have to edit it out. I believe it's Michelob Golden Draft and Miller. I'm gonna Google it right now because otherwise I'm gonna hear
Well,
about it for
Miller
another three
Genuine Draft would be
weeks.
MGD,
Yeah,
but
but so would Michelob Golden
oh
Draft.
boy. Well, how come they have to have the same initials? Like get marketing departments. Why are they doing this?
Well, I don't know, but Michelob Golden Draft. That's that's Michelob Golden Draft. And then what was I drinking?
So if I Google MGD beer. Yeah, we got multiple submissions about it. Miller Genuine Draft, MGD. It's an American style light lager. Okay, so what is
Michelob Golden Draft, I think is what I had. Right? Isn't that what I had?
I don't even
I
know
believe
anymore.
so. Yeah, I don't know either.
We certainly have failed in this area.
Yeah, I had Michelob Golden Draft, which is not the same as what you just said. And we admit
Yeah.
we were wrong. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. We will try to not make such
So
a mistake in the
Miller
future.
Genuine Draft is an American style
And
lager.
that's MGD.
MGD is Miller Genuine Draft, and Michelob Golden Draft is the cold filtered thing that we talked about before.
Correct. Yes. Okay. Perfect.
And I was corrected by we got at least
Oh
4 or
my
5
God.
people. So
With exclamation points and everything. So we apologize. We were outside of our knowledge zone and um yeah.
and it's funny
I
because
think even my little brother gave me a fact check on that.
yeah, it's funny because beer isn't really what the show is about. We just happen, it's just a little piece of it, but somehow it
We are
ends up
not
this way.
experts.
No, no. So Jay, I think maybe we should keep the current events and stuff for our next episode because
Yeah.
we are out of
Yeah, let's do
time.
that.
And
let's get to our guests. We want to make sure we get to our guests tonight.
yeah.
And so we have up next, we have Jeff, who's been guiding since he was 13 on Eagle Lake. Take it away.
Today on the Hardwater Fishing Show, we have Jeff Moreau, fish from Fishtails Tackle and Guide Service. Jeff, thanks for joining the show.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Super excited. Yeah, and have a Canadian guest on and a real guide. I mean, that's super awesome. You have so much experience in fishing, so glad you can come on and share it with us.
Well, I'm going to say this. I know that in Canada, from my gut, my brother lives in the States. That's why I can say this is it's easier in Canada to be able to be a guide than it is in the States because you have a lot more competition, I want to say, and pressure in the States. A guide has his work cut out for him in the States versus a guide in Canada.
Oh,
That's my take anyways.
yeah, that makes sense. And this is a generalization maybe, but I always think about there's a reason we go to Canada to go fishing, and it's because in general the fishing's better in Canada, right? Like, I mean,
yeah, it is.
I mean, so Jeff, you never sit around and think, I need to go to the United States to fish this weekend.
Right.
Like, does that thought ever cross your mind? Like, oh man, they're killing
but I'll
Red
tell
Lake.
you what,
Let's go.
I mean, depends where in the States, I guess, but going down and catching some tarpon down in Florida, other than that, yeah, probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. See, so you don't dream about coming here at all. And we kind of dream about going there. That's probably
No,
the difference.
We're spoiled. I'm just going to tell you that flat out. We are spoiled up here with the fishing.
So Canada's a really big country. Where in Canada are you?
So I am in northwestern Ontario, which is 120 miles north of International Falls.
Got it. Okay.
Right north there on Eagle Lake. That's my home base is on Eagle Lake.
Okay.
And how long far, Jason?
It's really not.
We've been over the border. I mean, it's 120 miles or kilometers.
Is it an easy 120 miles or one of those?
I'll tell you by the distance wise, it's like 2.5 hours from the border if you do the speed limit.
90 kilometers or 55 miles.
Kilometers.
Yeah.
Kilometers. Yeah.
We were in Canada once, me and my little brother, and we're like barreling down this road at night with a Xterra with canoes on top. And I'm like, bro, you're going way too fast. He's like, it says 90. I'm like, dude, that's kilometers, not miles per hour.
I heard stories like that.
It was terrifying.
Usually it involved beer, but I heard stories from others.
No, he was tired. There's no beer involved. It was just, I don't know. It's mad.
It's mad. Yeah. Yes.
Well, they're not the your road infrastructure system is awesome, by the way. If it's going to snow, you guys are ready and waiting to get rid of that snow, where it might take a little bit longer up here, and just there's not as many guys to go do it. Maybe, I don't know.
Never thought of it that way. I guess we're always complaining about it. It's like, gosh, they need to get those roads cleared off. We got places to go. Got to get to Canada.
Well, the fishing might be easier, but I think you probably get your workout in the getting there and the accessing and all the gear, right? So it's a little more remote, which is really awesome. I love being remote, but you probably have more of your work comes from the getting people there to the fish.
Yes. Well, to describe it, it's like a mini lake of the woods, Eagle Lake. I'm saying right where I am.
Okay.
It's like 68,000 acres of water, 81 miles from one end to the other.
Wow.
3 different ecosystems of water in it. You got your darker water to the east, you got your green water to the middle, and then the clear water to the northwest. And it's a multi-species lake, so that gives you, perch, walleye, northern, smallmouth, muskies, lake trout, whitefish.
So that is a really good sized body of water.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then to describe it, I guess this way, how Minnesota says they're the land of 70,000 lakes, land of 10,000 lakes. Well, northwestern Ontario, which is probably roughly the size of Minnesota, is the land of 70,000 lakes.
And all of them have fish in them, right?
Well, I'm going to say, yeah, but not all of them. Actually, a lot of them are walleye northern lakes.
Yeah.
And then you got your multi-species lakes after that, but a lot of them are walleye and northern lakes.
Okay.
The nice thing is you can go, like for myself, where I am, There's no really loading. You don't have to load up and go somewhere, like load up your truck and your trailer and take off and go somewhere. I can go by snowmobile and go to as many lakes as you want to in a day. You'll never cover the lakes in a day leaving from my house by snowmobile.
Really? So what do you run? What are you running for a snowmobile setup? I mean, what's your rig?
Well, I've got the 20-inch wide. I got two expeditions. I got one of the 600, the two-stroke, and I got the 900 Ace Turbo. That's the newer one I purchased. And I don't like pulling a sleigh anywhere. You guys are saying, "What?" I know. And I could put a pop-up shelter on top of like the box system that I have on the back. So I could put that on top. If it's going to be cold or something like that, I'll put a, couple of them on top and I could fill the box with all the other stuff I need. But I really dislike pulling a sleigh.
Okay.
Well, because you can move a lot faster without
Well,
pulling.
and plus some of the lakes we go to, like there's no groomed trails getting to these lakes. These are trails that are just as wide as your snowmobile, but you are back in the bush and you're deaking through little trails, creeks, and over another lake, get to another lake and all that kind of stuff. So you got to keep the trails open yourself if you're going to use them. And yeah, it's a fun gig. Like that's probably the most adventurous part of it is going out and just getting in the back of the, back in the bush where there's no other people and you're not going to see any other pop-ups or shanties. And I do have two ice shacks that I run myself on Eagle Lake, but yeah, the rest of it is just back in the bush, I call it.
Back in the bush. Cool.
You give clients that real wilderness experience.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, there's a guy that has dog sleds and he has people from internationally all over the place, from Germany and stuff like that. And they're camping out in the middle of nowhere. And some mornings I go flying by them and they're like, "What in the world was that?" Oh, that's the only other person I see back there once in a while. Usually is that kind of a person.
Huh. Tell us a little bit more about what being an ice fishing guide on Eagle Lake is like.
I would have to say it is, well, number one, it's easy. There's no real competition. I mean, there's no other guides per se around. You know what I mean? It's not like a south of Lake of the Woods where there's shanties everywhere and there's, trucks and all that stuff out on the ice and stuff. So it's relatively easy. I'm saying I got, the comfort of my own space to go where I want to go that way. Unless you're going crappie fishing or something, then you're going to run into a bunch of people and that kind of stuff. But then there's a safety involved in that because you are by yourself back in these lakes. You have to take extra precautions have a lot more gear with you safety wise than you would if you're going around with a bunch of other people kind of thing. But I know it's fun. It's fun to be able to go to all these different lakes and figure it out. You can go, like I say, you can go to Eagle Lake. I usually like to fish for walleyes or northerns on Eagle Lake. And then I'll go to different lakes for lake trout. And going to different lakes for lake trout, I'm going to say is probably the most adventurous part of it. And when I say going for lake trout, I know a lot of people in the States, they kind of frown on lake trout. I think because they're used to fishing in like the Great Lakes and stuff where you have smelt fed lake trout. Okay. These are not oily, like smelt fed trout type. These are freshwater shrimp fed trout. So the taste is a lot. There's no heavy oiliness to them. They're a very orange meat and very good tasting.
Wow. Like orange, like salmon kind of orange almost?
Yeah, maybe not quite as reddish as a salmon, but orangey, like a freshwater shrimp orangey kind of.
That's really interesting. So
I've seen those freshwater shrimp on Devil's Lake before in North Dakota. But I don't think we really have them in Minnesota or Iowa or Wisconsin, those kind of areas.
I was at the Boston Fish Market in Chicago, and I went there. I wanted to go eat there, so I go there to eat, and I seen he had whitefish. So I was asking him, "Hey, where'd you get your whitefish from?" He said, "Oh, you would never know it, from a little lake way up there in Canada called Eagle Lake." I said, "Oh yeah,
little lake."
Why is that? He said, "Because most other lakes have smelt fed, which makes the whitefish oily." He said that lake does not have smelt, and they're not an oily tasting fish. They're closer to walleye than they would be to like another lake.
And you're like, "Hey, that checks out."
Yeah,
that's really cool. That is really cool.
So I know you have your guiding, you're guiding on Eagle Lake and in the area of one of those 70,000 lakes. You also do tackle. Tell us a little bit more about your tackle.
Well, my wife and I, it's mainly jigs. It's mainly jigs of all different sorts and sizes. Used to make a bit more like musky lures and stuff like that, but I'm going to say the bulk of it, the meat and potatoes, is jigs of, and it's more custom jigs of any different color and size you want. Like you can make it to order, or and it's if somebody orders it from a tackle shop, well, we can usually have it there the next day. It's not being shipped from Haiti or something like that or other. And
Awesome. So are those jigs for like walleye jigs? You said you mostly fish walleye, or are they also for like crappies and stuff too?
Mainly walleye, mainly well, like I could make it for anything. So I mean, we do stuff for like bigger stuff for lake trout, like half ounce, I'm saying, with a bigger
Okay.
hook for lake trout or bass, that kind of thing. But I just no, this is odd. I just happen to have a couple of bags
sweet.
beside me because I'm in the man cave here.
Yeah, I like the man cave.
I don't know if you can see that or not, but
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So that's one of our newest ones for this year.
Cool.
Okay. And then, so it's of any different weight, size, and I usually up the aught size. You know what I mean when I say the aught size of the hook? So between the tip of the hook and the shank of the hook, that distance is the aught.
Okay.
So I usually up the aught size. So typically, if you buy one in the store and they're going to be, 1/8 ounce jig is usually a 1/0, or a 1. We would make it a 1/0. A quarter ounce is a 1/0. We'd make it a 2/0 kind of thing.
Okay.
But yeah, that kind of stuff there too.
So does it give you more space for your bait, and that way it's a little bigger?
Yeah. Well, if you want to use bigger minnows, or if you want to use bigger soft plastics, there's that option there. And then so people customize the order to whatever they want, kind of thing. So
that was actually one thing I was going to ask you, since you bring it up with when you're jigging for walleye. I'm probably jumping way out of order. I always do this to Jeff, but since we're talking about jigs, when you're jigging for walleye, do you tend to use more live bait with a plastic, or a jig plastic and live bait, or what's your what do you do?
Say summertime, I'm almost always on. I would say I'm more on. I'd say half and half. Summertime, minnows and plastic in the summertime, and then wintertime, I would probably a bit heavier towards because I like putting a minnow on a set line, and then I'd be jigging another one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So probably more meat in the wintertime and then less in the summer. Yeah, you could hook them differently too.
All right, let's talk about that. Tell me about that.
All right.
The devil's in the details.
So I always tell people this, the easiest way is to go in the mouth with your hook. I'm saying in the mouth, out the gill naturally, push the minnow all the way up to the ball of the jig, turn your hook so it goes through the side of the minnow and come out the other side. Because a lot of people hook their minnows just through the head. And when a walleye goes to eat, and you guys all know this, I know that, but when walleye goes to eat, they just inhale. And if it's not the first bite of Christmas dinner, but the last bite of Christmas dinner, well, that inhale might not be so strong. So they'll inhale it, the tail goes in the mouth, and they'll clamp down on it. You'll feel the weight, you'll set the hook, and then you lost your minnow. So by doing it this way, you get your hook further down into the minnow. For my set lines, for walleyes, for set lines, the ones I'm just going to have sitting there. So if you measure that aught, like I was talking about, the distance from the tip to the shank of the hook, if you put the tip right about on the exit spot of the minnow, and you measure over to where the shank is, and then you hook it in the tail there, you go in the tail there with the hook, and then you spin it around, you come up through the exit hole, up through the exit hole, and then just out the side, not through the backbone, so that the minnow is sitting, you know what I mean? The minnow, when your jig is standing up in the water column, your minnow is sitting properly, and then it'll swim around that way. Yeah. Even though you're putting it through the dorsal fin or the tail or something like that. This way you got it hooked twice.
Do us a huge favor later on. Would you take a picture of each one of those riggings when you get a chance?
Be awesome.
And send it to us?
Sure, I will.
A picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yes.
Sure, absolutely.
No, I think the reason I asked is because there is a lot of different ways to do it. And, I tend to be kind of old, I just kind of go up through it or through the backbone or whatever. And I know I have a lot to learn yet on that particular topic, which is why I learned. And so you're primarily then using fresh bait or using salted minnows. We end up using salted a lot. Well, we used to. We
We
can't bring
used to.
anything into Canada anymore.
Yeah.
We have to buy it all there. So we're kind of
Yeah, that sucks. Eh? The minnow guys got to make some money off you.
they are making.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of money. Your
Yeah.
minnow costs are substantially higher, at least for
Oh, yeah.
out of Canadians people. Maybe
Yes.
is there an in country and out of country rate for minnow purchases up there?
Well, you could say, can I pay in Canadian or US?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one always got us was, remember, Jason, we'd go Lake of the Woods and like, well, I'll stop just past the rock cut. We have to drive past the rock cut, and we're driving down the road looking for the rock cut.
It's so flat
It like
where
10
we
years
were.
ago, 10 miles
How many
ago.
rock
So,
cuts? How many rock cuts was it?
yeah, exactly. It was funny, but
So then are you using like fatheads, shiners, or what kind of critter are you using?
If you can get shiners, they're great. I love shiners, but dace, blue nose, what more or less whatever you can get.
yeah.
And then you'll get a period throughout the summer where it's hard to get bigger minnows. That's when I'll go to a bigger soft. Like if I want a bigger minnow, I'll use a bigger soft plastic, like
Bigger plastic.
like a 4-inch gulp shiner minnow or something like that.
Okay.
Cool.
Good information. Appreciate you sharing that. So how about tip ups? Do you do tip ups? I'm ignoring Jeff's list of questions. So
I'm used to it.
So like I'll take like a bait caster clicker reel.
okay.
Rig, and I'll have that, and I'll put that in a tip up or set line, and I'll have it so that you hear the clicker go off that way, or those the little first strike flags that you clip on your. I like using rods. I don't like using anything, no hand lines, no that kind of stuff, because sometimes you're fishing in deeper water, and that's a lot to pull up. So yeah,
that makes sense.
The bait caster, the Okuma cold water series with the clicker, those work really well for me, the counters. So I'll use those, and I will put the clicker on, and then you can hear that from quite a ways away.
Do you have a favorite rod you use?
I got a bunch of different ones. I mean, I got some Kramer rods that are 38-inch that he calls the Trout Ninja, that I just love those rods. And he's made them a little more specific for us up here. They've got bigger eyes on them, on the end, because I do fish outside a lot. I don't fish inside. If I'm fishing in the ice shack, okay, but if I'm not in an ice shack and we're on a trout lake somewhere, we're usually bouncing around from spot to spot, trying to stay active, doing grid lines of holes and that kind of stuff.
And the bigger eyes keep the icing down, right? Like so that you don't get frozen in. Yeah.
Right. Especially if you're going to use, some kind of braid. If you want to use braid, you need a bigger eyes for sure.
Yep.
If it gets too cold, okay, you might have to flip to a rod that has just monofilament on it.
Braids come a long ways. I use it pretty much all the time now. I'll put a floral leader on there, but like the most of the line is braid, and it's so much more durable.
Oh, well, if you're fishing deeper water, say you're fishing anywhere 35 feet or something like that for walleyes, which in the wintertime, if you want a whole day bite during the day, you might have to go down to 35, 40 feet even. And having that braid on there, or even trout fishing, if you're fishing deeper water trout fishing, you don't have to set the hook and run backwards 10 steps away from the hole because you have monofilament on there. You can just set the hook right there.
I've got that visual now. That's awesome. That's awesome.
You get a lot of stretch on that mono. One thing you say, then it just pops me to something else. So you mentioned grid lines and drilling. We just did an episode on augers. What are you running for an auger?
Okay, well, I've been through the gas. I've been through the propane, and I got onto the electric, and I have a Milwaukee drill for the electric part of it. Okay. And then I have with the handle, you want the handle.
Yeah.
And
the
then,
handle,
you gotta have the handle. And then I mean the Eskimo pistol bit, or like the Strike Master, like that bit.
Yeah.
Those are both awesome ones, you know what I mean? The extension, I like the Eskimo extension because it's still aluminum and it seems to fit tighter if you want to go to an extension. When you go to the Strike Master, they got like a metal sleeve extension. Maybe they got a newer one now, but this was just a couple of years ago. And it kind of wobbles a little bit. So I had to take, you have to take some black tape and kind of fill the gap a little bit, or you can get it welded if you want or whatever. But just to tighten it up a little bit, so to take away some of the slop with an extension on, I mean.
I think I love what you just said, because Jeff and I had this, I don't know if you listened to that episode or not, but a long discussion in which he kind of said, Jason, the pistol bit in a drill just isn't adequate for way up north and rah, rah, rah. It's so deep ice. And when you're 35 miles out in Lake of the Woods, there's no way you can use that. And now here you are, you're a guide in Canada, and you're saying, hey, man, I'm just running my Milwaukee in a pistol bit.
Yep.
And amen, brother. I think we need to consider that debate closed. And I appreciate it.
And well, and I do have an ion with a 10-inch.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
if you're
very
going to do
good.
like a bigger size hole, I would go
Yeah.
to the ion. Just
Yeah.
it's a bit more stable with an ion if you're going to do a bigger hole like that. And then I got this little. So I come up with this. This is when all these batteries were first coming out. I had a little canvas cooler, and
Yep.
these batteries would fit inside that, and I'd have those little hot pockets.
Mhm.
And if it
Yep.
did get it cold, I would just shake up a hot pocket and throw it in there and keep them warm. You know, because you had to do like battery maintenance. You couldn't let them sit outside too long, otherwise they're going to get freeze up on you. So you had to make sure everything was nice and warm.
So Jason, and maybe your experience with no handle and ripping my arm off might have been part of the problem with
He's
my
so dramatic. You just got to brace it on.
like you're like holding on, you're like, I think I have a wrist still. I'm not sure because there's no handle.
I just have stronger wrists than you do.
Hey, family show.
I don't want to ask why.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh boy. Oh boy. All right. So let's get back to the list here, Jason. Are the questions we don't have to cover them all, but
Okay.
one thing we always like to talk about, Jeff, is like when did you get started ice fishing? What was one of your first memories of like going out there and ice fishing?
I'm going to start it just a little bit before the ice fishing part. I had fished a lot, like a few, like not a lot, I can say, but a few times before I was 9 or 10 years old. I had like all the rivers and stuff like that. And then we moved to this area. And at 9 or 10 years old, just so you know, it's kind of late to start ice fishing in Canada. By then, you should have like a 2-pounder by the time you're 3 years old.
Yeah.
A walleye, I'm saying. But so I started working off on the docks at a resort, and I was a pier technician to start off with. I was a pier technician. And I did that for the summer. And then I noticed the guides. I was like, yeah, that's the gig right there, the guiding part. And I loved fishing. You had time off in the middle of the day. So we had free reign to use a boat. So we'd hop in a boat and go fishing and stuff. And I thought, I gotta start guiding. I gotta make a little bit more money, I thought, because in the wintertime, I mean, everybody has a snowmobile up here. I wanted a snowmobile.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to make a bit more money, you know. So at the place I was working at, I asked him, and he said, "Nope, nope, nope. You're too young to start guiding." You know, I was like 12 or something like that. So I had asked a different camp. I said, "Hey, do you need another guide?" He said, "Well, you know what? I just happen to need another person to help me out driving another boat. I got a bigger group." So it's going to be about 2 weeks, and that's about it, you know. So I went and helped this guy, Ori Colgrove, at a different camp. I went and helped him out, and he's passed away now. God bless him. Nice guy. So I followed him around the lake, learned how to cook a shore lunch without burning the potatoes and all that kind of fun stuff. And then he said, "Okay, you're on your own. You can go and guide on your own." So I'd go guide on my own. And this is like a man's man guy that he would, every time I come back in from guiding, he would have a cigar and a big shot of, you know, I didn't know what it was at the time. It was whiskey or bourbon or something like that. And when I walked by him going to the fish house, he would say, "Hey, when you're done cleaning your fish, come back over here and tell me how your day was." Okay. So I'd clean my fish and go back over and sit there and tell him how my day was. And meanwhile, he poured me a big tumbler of this, you know, I thought it tastes like gasoline, but I'm thinking, did he not know how old I was? I was 12, 13 years old, right around there. And so I didn't want to offend him. So I drank the gasoline while I'm sitting there talking to him. Then I'd ride my bike back home doing the S all the way home kind of thing. So I did that. And once I started guiding, made a bit more money. And I bought my first Arctic Cat Panther. I'm saying it was like the 1970 or 71, I think it was, right around there, the one lung, you know.
Nope.
And that was so I could go ice fishing more is the reason how I got into doing that. And I would go with another family close by. I'd go with them quite a bit, and we'd go every weekend, that's where we were, is ice fishing every single weekend.
That's a story. I mean, that's
That's great.
awesome.
And then you had to make money to, get a bigger snowmobile afterwards.
Get
So
the
then, since that time, then has guiding been your full-time occupation?
No, I guided for, I guess it was 12 years there. And then I went on to worked in the local mill here for 20 years. But once I got in the mill, that helped me fund my guide business. So I had, you worked 12 days out of a month, so
okay.
I had a lot of days to go guiding. So I have my own guide business that I started up then, and then did my own guide business since then.
Wonderful. So
Awesome.
you've been in the game a very long time then.
Yeah, moved on, and I managed another resort for a few years, and I'm retiring from there. So I'm a free entity coming up here, and I'm looking to get back in the game of doing it more full time.
Sweet. One video I saw, you sent me the link to it, and I looked at it and filleting a walleye with an axe. Tell me about that.
That was Midwest Outdoors, and it was, so we did different episodes with them. One for walleye, one for bass, one for muskies. So the muskie one actually went really well, by the way, if you want to look that up. But they had these things called the tip of the week. That's what it was, the tip of the week. So I did he says, "Come on, what do you got for tip of the week?" And I had already cleaned fish with an axe for, shits and giggles in the fish house kind of thing. So it was actually late. It was like 10 o'clock or 10:30 at night, late for me during the summertime anyways. And somebody had brought fish in, and the regular guys we had were gone home already. And I said, "Well, I'll clean your fish." So I cleaned the fish with an axe with him on the camera there. And there might've been a couple of cocktails involved in there. I'm pretty sure.
I couldn't tell from the video, but you made it look pretty easy. I think sometimes I struggle with a knife, so an axe would be tough. So that was awesome.
I bet you flayed a few walleyes in your life, though.
Oh man, am I telling you, if I could have a penny for every walleye I've cleaned over the years.
Yeah. I'm just thinking back, you're talking when you're working at that resort, man. I bet back in those days, just
well, back in the day,
lots of
when you were a
walleyes.
pier technician, I like to call it, not a dockhand. When you're a pier
Yep.
You're a technician, yeah.
you had to clean, and these were bigger resorts, so you had a lot of people there. And the limit back then for everybody was six walleyes per person.
Sure.
So you had to, clean a lot of fish in a day. I'm saying.
I know it was always nice. Most places I've been get the full service, but I have been on Lake of the Woods once or twice where they do clean your fish, right? Or you did clean them, and it is nice. If you're out lake all day, and so they just kind of come back in little packages. It's pretty nice. There though, I always thought it was interesting. They always left the tails on. They flayed them a little differently than I had done before. Like they would leave part of the fish. I don't know if it's like for regular.
Oh, that's with the skin on, like
yeah,
that was so that you would have something to grab onto when you take the meat off the skin.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's why they did that. A 1-inch band, from vertically top to bottom.
Yep.
A 1-inch band is skin is what you have to have on there.
Yeah.
For identification purposes.
Where can our listeners find you? Like, where do they find more information about, if they wanted to look you up to, hey, I'm going to Eagle Lake, or I want to go to Ontario fishing, where would they find information about you?
Well, probably the best way I'm saying is just on Facebook, Fishtails Tackle and Guide Service, that way.
Okay.
Haven't really thought about putting up a website really more or less yet, but we're just kind of word of mouth a little bit. And
yeah, I can attest to with our website. It's not a ton of work, but it does take some effort to get it going and put it up there. So
I'll probably bounce around a few different resorts and stuff like that. They're always looking. Guiding is becoming a dying breed up here. So if you find a good guide, you should hang on to him, kind of thing.
Wait a minute, you said, but it's easy to guide up there. See, now I need to go talk to my wife and say, hey,
there's not a lot of us, but it is.
Maybe I need to move.
I shouldn't say that. No, I shouldn't say the word easy. I'm saying the trouble finding fish is a lot easy. Like, we have a lot less trouble finding fish than you guys probably do if you're a guide down there. That's what I'm saying.
What my question is, and I thought about this question earlier when you were talking. What's when you're guiding people that have fished previously, is there any, like, as you think about like misconceptions that people that aren't fishing a ton, that they do or mistakes that people are making just inadvertently when they fish that you help correct or not? I don't know. Something
I would probably say the biggest thing is a lot of people do not bring the correct gear. They'll come up and they'll just grab those rods out of their garage that they haven't changed the line on in 20 years or maybe never got changed. They'll throw them in the vehicle and we're going fishing to Canada. Oh, that's good. You know what I mean? You have to have the proper gear. I'm not saying you have to go out and get all brand new rods and brand new everything, but at least change your line, have a decent rod for the application with the fish you're trying to catch. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Have a good spare, that kind of stuff. And there's a checklist. You can just bring rain gear, all that kind of stuff and everything else. There's a good checklist, like normal stuff if you're going to go, anywhere fishing close by you and spending the day out there. But
yeah, sure.
Okay.
So one of the common things people run into is they're just slow, like fish are biting slow. You kind of see them come in, they're just lethargic, they're grumpy. What do you do?
Dead stick. Have it sitting. So I'll lift, drop. And then so it'll make a little cloud. So if there's a fish around you, it'll see the cloud of the commotion and then put it right back down on the bottom and just leave it there. Especially if you have a live scope and you can see them coming. You can go above it and try to go. But if they're sticking tight to the bottom, to the bottom of the water column there, a lot of times dead sticking is better if they're not very active. Or I like to search and destroy. I mean, if I'm not stuck to a nice shack and I can go different places, I'll look for different spots until I'll leave the group where they are. I'll go ahead and I will drill some holes. And if it's not happening, they'll come and those holes are pre-drilled now. They'll get there and it's just get there and drop down. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then getting on an active group doesn't usually take very long at all.
Now, do you find yourself using the live scope for looking for fish, or they're more just to keep kind of see what they're doing once you're there?
I'm not going to say that I don't have a live scope. I've been getting myself set up to should I take that plunge or not?
Yep.
I know a lot of people are. I don't know that I don't know that it's, and I fish with a lot of guys that have them and I love it. I love watching it. Just watching it is more fun, I think. You know what I mean? But I noticed if you're, for example, muskie fishermen, a lot of muskie fishermen, we're noticing that if you have a live scope, that fish is moving away from your live scope beam.
Okay.
They're moving away from it. So you're almost spooking the fish away. In the winter time, fishing for looking for crappies, looking for walleyes or something like that. Okay. You know what? But I think a lot of people, they got to get back to, a lot of people spend too much time looking at the electronics, not talking to the guy next to you if you're with a group of people. If you're by yourself, okay, sure. But if you're out fishing with a group of guys, it's supposed to be you're out fishing with a group of guys. It's supposed to be a fun event. You know what I mean? Like if you have a depth finder, you're looking at your depth finder, but you could still hold a conversation. You know what I mean? You're not, people are losing touch of the word fishing and the fun of fishing. Guys that have like the fish counters that come on my boat, I cannot stand a fish counter. I'm like, put your clicker away. I don't care if we get 150 or 250 in a day. I don't care.
Right.
I don't want to know the number. Right. I'd rather have more of a fun time. We're catching fish and getting interrupted catching fish while we're having a conversation. People got to get back to the roots of having fun and having a good time while you're out there.
So do you do any meals on the ice when you're guiding?
I have. If it's a decent enough day, like if we're out trout fishing and if it's kind of cold day or something, I'll bring some of the stuff and we'll catch a trout and we'll cook up maybe I'll make like a whatever, garlic and butter, and I'll bring some fresh bread and you dip it in that and some red peppers and all that kind of stuff. You'll do some kind of a pan fry like that. And we've done fish fries of walleyes out on the ice before.
Yeah.
If it's a nice enough day, yeah.
What's your favorite way to cook walleye? Fried, baked, otherwise?
A bit more troublesome, but if you put your walleyes in a little bit of flour, and you can have seasoning on there if you want also to begin with, but a little bit of flour, then put it in your egg and milk wash. And then you take almond slivers and crackers, regular crackers, like your saltine crackers.
Okay.
Crack them all up and lemon zest and a little bit of lemon pepper and mix all that up and put your egg wash fish into that.
Okay.
And then pan fry it with a little bit of olive oil and some butter in there.
Okay.
Pan fry it in shallow, not like just a little bit in there. pan fry it like that, and then put it on top of some vermicelli with some red peppers and mushrooms and whatever kind of veg you want to add to your pasta with some olive oil on it. I like it like that. That's a good way. I mean, I always
Sounds
love
really good.
a good fish fry. Also, my grandkids, I can only cook it one way for my grandkids, and that is in a pan, olive oil, just the plain walleyes go in there with lemon pepper and lemon zest. Has to have lemon zest in there also, and they will eat a whole pan of walleye. No matter how many walleyes I cook, they'll eat them all.
Now I want walleye.
I know. I've got some in my freezer. I think I've got it. And I just bought some almond slivers for some other project I
Oh,
was
there you go.
cooking. So I'm like, I just have every ingredient you named.
It's a bit time consuming to do it that way, but I'll tell you what, if you do it, it is well worth it. I mean, if you got some company coming over, do you want to impress or something like that? That's a good meal to do it with.
Good company recipe. Do you do much crappie fishing then up there
It's
too?
a different lake. I can take you crappie fishing. It's a different lake.
Okay.
And I don't fish it, a horrible amount of time. Just because I don't like scads of people.
Sure.
I like
Yeah.
being by myself, and that crappie lake has a lot of people on it.
Sure.
And there's jacks everywhere and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of not me, but I enjoy
Got
going a couple times a winter to go crappie fishing kind of thing.
Sometimes, when you go to a local lake by my house or something, you can kind of venture out on your own. But it seems like if you're going to go to Canada and plan that trip, you probably would recommend getting a guide, right? I mean, it's a little more rustic, like not something you'd probably want to tackle on your own first time kind of thing. You'd want to stay at a resort and get somebody to kind of bring you out.
Bait shops, they'll give you knowledge. If you just call up guide services and you ask, I mean, anybody asks me, I'll tell them
Sure.
flat out. If you may not end up coming to use my service, but if I can help you get to the right place and you have a great time, you'll probably remember me. Oh yeah, that guy I called and he gave me all kinds of great information, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd rather get people to the right fit.
I just know it can be kind of intimidating. Just, I don't know why, but like you go to Canada and you feel a little more rural and rustic, it's nice to have that kind of safety blanket or somebody that's been there, done that. And, makes you enjoy your trip a little bit more because, you can relax a little bit more.
And, and it doesn't, if you're for ice fishing wise, if you have a group of two, you have a group of two. But I mean, even if you have a group of 10, if you split my cost between 10 people, that's, pretty doable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you can gain information as you go along. And maybe next year you wouldn't have to use my service because, hey, I got, I know where we went and this is what we're going to go do. And we're going to stay over there. Maybe we'll stop by and have a cocktail with Jeff or something like that. But, that kind of thing.
It's one thing we talk about a lot on we've done an annual trip with a couple of college buddies, Northwood Dave and Ole. And a lot of times we go to different lakes every time. We rarely, other than Lake of the Woods, we rarely knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
But when we go to a new lake, we've never fished a lot of times, and we have 3 days. And we keep talking about like, hey, maybe one of these times we should hire a guide for a day just because we do, you spend a couple of days trying different spots and you talk to people and intel gets old really fast too, is the thing that, what was good last week isn't necessarily good this week.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, and accommodation wise, I know there's some spots close by that I can set you up accommodation wise, no matter what size the group, that kind of thing. And maybe you're just going to want to say, hey, can you draw me up a map, Jeff, of where some good walleye spots are? And I'm happy to help, guys. You know what I mean? I'm happy to help you. Here's some spots that this has been firing over there and that kind of stuff. And once you get the pattern of, and then there's an Eagle Lake is all charted and mapped, I'm saying, so you could look at a map and go, well, if they're biting here, they should be biting over there also. I think you can put, two and two together pretty quick.
Like what size fish gets you going? You're like, okay, I'm into something.
My wife and I, so we fish a little bit around Eagle Lake and not a lot of spots in Eagle Lake, but we kind of bounce around to some different spots kind of thing. And I guess first I'll go number wise. So last year I don't want to remember. So it was 26 walleyes above 27 inches and up to 30 3/4. But the bulk of them in there were around that, really close to that 28.25 inches, the bulk of them. I'd say half of them were about that size. So that was a good spawn year, and a good year class.
Yep.
Stout.
Over 30-inch walleye. Okay, I'm getting me kind of juicy that way. You know what I mean? I get pretty excited when I get walleyes that big, but lake trout, the lake I go to like a 5 to 8 pounder. You're not going to get a big one in one of the lakes I love to go to, but as many 5 to 8 pounders is going to be a really good average size mean in the
Sure.
middle. Like, so for eaters, they want to call it, or that kind of thing, it's great for that size. And it's not a lot of real small ones and hardly any, mammoth big ones. But if you go to a bigger lake and you do a different lake and you get a bigger one, to me it would be, you get in that plus, 35-inch lake trout or better type thing. If you get past 40, that's getting me really juicy kind of thing. But
Wow.
Do you have a bucket list lake to fish? One that you've been meaning to go to and fish?
well, I've been looking a lot at only because I had an invitation to go there, is in the Northwest Territories, like the Yukon, up in that area there,
Wow.
for lake trout. I mean, for lake trout wise, if I was going to go,
Yeah.
I would go over there for lake trout, just for catching a lot of bigger lake trout. Not lake in particular, but there's a cluster of them in an area up there.
Okay.
But it's a long haul. I mean, a couple 2-3 days drive one way kind of thing, and hauling all your own gear and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, tires and bearings and all that kind of stuff you got to worry about when you're traveling over there. And yeah, it would be a fun thing to go do one time. Actually, I've seen a couple of podcasts, or not podcasts, but a couple of YouTubes of guys going, when our ice is getting bad here, it's still good there.
Okay.
Sure.
So who knows? Maybe this coming end of April, beginning of May, maybe that's where I'll head this year, maybe.
Yeah, we'll need a fishing report if you do that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about ice fishing in May in the Northwest Territory. That sounds awesome. Now I have another destination. I want to go out west and fish in the mountains, and then you do the Northwest Territory too.
Someday.
Wide. You need like a good snowmobile, long track snowmobile, wide track, long track. A couple of ponies underneath you there in case you get into some slush and all that kind of mess. And
I've been watching. I am a YouTube junkie. We talked about this a little bit, but I've been watching. There's this guy that has this truck with this cabin on the back of it, and he's in Alaska. And I'm like, there's got to be some really cool ice fishing in Alaska too.
oh, I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. I'm not so much. I don't really care about the the grayling and the smaller trout, the dolly varden and all that kind of stuff. I'm not really too keened up on that. I'm more of a bigger fish kind of a guy.
I mean, a 30-inch walleye. I haven't seen one in real life yet. So
Nope, me neither.
someday.
Well, you guys got to come on up here.
We do.
Well, when I heard it's like 2.5 hours, I'm like, God, that's not that far.
No, that's if you're driving the speed limit, by the way.
Yeah,
Like
and I always do. I always do.
Jason's a ticket in the mail.
Yeah. Another ticket in the mail. Any advice? Anything I didn't ask you that you're like, hey guys, you should ask me this?
I mean, most everybody has like floater suits now, and the warm clothing wise. Like a lot of people think I love to fish. If like I said, if I'm not in my ice shack walleye fishing, I love fishing outside and being adventurous, going lake to lake or going on a bigger lake, going spot to spot kind of thing. So I guess it'd be like gear maintenance of gotta have good boots, gotta have good, warm gear. Bring, hot pockets. I don't like gloves as much as mitts. Mitts are,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna be fishing, yeah, okay, mitts, but gloves when you're outside traveling around and all that kind of stuff. And just to be, I guess, preventative and have all the stuff that if you're gonna spend that day outside, make sure you have be warm enough, be mobile enough to be able to travel around. You don't want to, pull a sleigh and then set up a tent and put the stove on. I get that. That's nice if you're going to be there for a half a day, but if you're going to only be there possibly for like an hour and you got your fish and you just want to move around and try somewhere else kind of thing. And I like being a little bit more portable.
I haven't published it yet, but I'm working on our blog, and I have one about portable shacks. And I was talking just recently about portable versus mobile, right? Like mobile meaning you can do what you're talking about is really move quick. And you're portable if you put up a giant shack and you can move it every half a day, but it's not the same thing as being mobile. So
Yeah. I mean, it depends what you're going to sacrifice too. Like you talked about having a live scope. And so I got the Helix 7s and I got
yeah.
those. I could fit two of those, probably in the same space that I got, your live scope, and then you got the pole and everything else.
Yep.
I just like keeping
Mhm.
it refined and keeping it, I'd rather have more food and maybe coffee I don't want to give that up.
Well, and if you're successful what you're doing and you're catching fish, at some point you have to say, what's it adding?
Do you ever think it's too cold to be outside? Like we were outside on Sunday fishing and it was 40 degrees. I mean, like anybody can fish outside when it's 40 degrees. It was great. But today now at home here, it's -5 right now. And things get a little tougher when it gets colder like that. Do you have kind of okay, I want to fish outside, but is there a magic number where you're like it's just too cold and I can't do it?
So here right now it is in Fahrenheit -12 with the windshield. It feels like -31. So that's kind of cold. It's
Yeah,
a little bit too cold. If it's going to be extremely cold or windy, I'd say, you know what? Let's go to the shack and fish inside. If it,
sure.
wind can throw you off too. If it's too windy, it's not so much fun either. But go to a shack or bring the pop up with you. I
Yep.
could throw a pop up on the back, and at least to get out of the wind. And
Yeah,
then inside there, you could fire up a little stove and make something, or have a coffee inside there, kind of thing, and yeah, bring your heaters and stuff like
yep.
that. I guess when you bring, say, the pop-ups that are in a sleigh, if the trail is packed and it's a frozen trail, yeah, okay, you can get there. But I mean, if there's slush on a lake
Yeah,
and it's the first time out in the beginning of the year and you get stuck in the slush and all that kind of stuff, I just try to avoid those kinds of things. But usually by mid January, February, all the lakes have got trails to them.
yeah.
It's got a good froze packed trail. Yes, you could bring your sleigh that's got, your pop-up built
Right.
into it, and it's more comfortable that way. I understand that. I get that 100%. And if that's quick and easy to set up,
Sure.
probably a lot better than, yeah, folding up the tent poles and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and of your pop-up. And
Yep. So all things being equal, you want to be outside, but there is a point where, okay, it's
yes.
30 below. We're going to have to be inside to be able to function.
Yes, yes. I'm way more comfier inside at 30 below,
Yes.
listening to some music and jigging
Mhm.
through a hole and looking out the window at my set line than
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think you hit on something we talk about a lot too, is that there's no one solution for everything.
Mhm.
It's
no,
it's you
no.
really have to just adapt what the conditions are that during that trip.
Yeah, but it's nice having both. If you could be versatile of, okay, yes, I have ice shacks, yes, I have pop-ups, and we're gonna go a la solo today with either, and
Mhm.
just kind of go spot to spot. Pick your nicest day and we'll go do that kind of thing.
I'm going to ask you about boots specifically. What kind of boots do you like for ice fishing?
I look at the rating on them, and I try to get boots that are anywhere from like -140 to -200. I try to
Wow.
get those kind of boots. And here's the trick about boots. And you could take almost any kind of a boot like this, as long as it's got a decent insole, okay? So we have a spot close by us here where you can go buy alpaca sole liners. I thought for a second I had a set here, but you'd pull your insole of your boot out, and it's got this little alpaca liner that you trim it to the size of your foot. You
Okay.
put it inside your boot. You put your liner back in, and or Bama socks. I don't know if you've ever heard of Bama socks.
No.
It's like a little quilted booty, more or less, that you could have your pair of socks and you put your foot inside these Bama socks, and
Hmm.
then you put it inside your liner. Well, obviously you
Okay.
got to buy boots that are a little bit,
Big.
one or two upsized of what you're used to, because you got your big socks and you got this Bama
Yep.
sock on. So I like altering a waterproof boot 100%.
Yeah.
Your boot should be waterproof, and I always like putting that Bama sock or the alpaca liner underneath your liner. But a good set of Baffins. I'm just gonna, I don't want to name drop a
Yeah.
couple of names there,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean. Like, it's just
Yeah.
any boot that's going to be like a -140 to -200 rating. That's going to be a good boot.
I'm
I've got
about
those.
100 degrees off on my boots.
Jason, those boots, you've seen those
Negative
boots
40.
I have. Those
Oh,
boots.
yeah.
So I have a pair of boots that I call them like Frankenstein boots, right? They are so big. I can't drive my car with them. Like you have to take them off because you couldn't differentiate between the brake pedal and the gas pedal because they're just like one big boot, right? And those are kind of what I okay. So he's got the rubber kind there.
So I got those are lacrosse.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
They're 1600 Thinsulate, and there's no liner inside these guys. So what I do is I just drop that alpaca liner in the bottom of
Okay.
that with a big pair of socks. And that's one. I mean, I got about 3 or 4 different pair of boots that I kind of bounce back and forth to depending on where I'm going and what I'm doing, I guess. But
Well, it's kind of a selfish reason I'm asking because my boots are starting to wear out, and so I'm
Uh-oh.
starting to dip into the market again.
Yeah.
And I've looked at lacrosse, but yeah, not having a liner was a thing. I'm like, when we go on multi-day trips, especially if we don't have access to like a good boot dryer or something, you just nice to pull the liner out and dry them.
Mhm.
yes. And that's what I like about that little alpaca liner.
Okay.
At the end of the day, I have heated floors in my garage. So when I get back at the end of the day, I take them out of the boot and I throw them on the floor. And then by the next morning, they're dry and away I go again. But what I mean, waterproof, because if you do get into slush, that'd be the worst
Yeah.
thing is to get a
Oh.
wet foot. So
You got to
waterproof.
have waterproof no matter what. Yeah.
Yeah. And I find too, like I had a big pair of Cabela's pack boots, and I'd used them for deer hunting. I tried to use them for ice fishing, but the trouble is you actually walk quite a bit ice fishing. And
Yes.
so you get that really heavy bottom boot in snow. And so like right now I'm running a Norfin boot that's not quite as insulated as maybe what you're running, but they're light. And so when you're
Yes.
pulling a shack or you're walking
I
through
like 'em.
snow, they're
Yeah.
light. And so that's to me the advantage of some of that.
That's
Whereas a
got
big
the
pack boot.
is that the new ones that got the little the clips in the bottom? You flip the clip out to
Yeah.
Yeah, I like those. That's a great idea.
Yeah, they're good. They're good boots. I've got about 5 years on mine now, and they're just getting a little long. They got a lot, a little long in the tooth. So starting to think about something different. But
Alpaca liners.
I
And I'm
I
not
like
a
that idea. It's
yeah,
it's an investment. Like when you buy boots, they're not cheap, and so
great.
I've done that where you buy the wrong kind and you just suck it up for a couple years
Yeah.
because you're like, well, I dropped $180 in these boots.
Oh.
I can't do that again next year.
Right.
The
Yeah.
Minister of Finance and War would not approve. So you just got to deal with it. So it is a big decision from a gear perspective.
What I love about the States is you guys have a lot of choices of different things. I love going to every tackle shop I possibly can. Going to the ice fishing shows.
Yep.
I'm like a gal in a mall. You know what I mean? I get a sore neck because I'm just looking like that everywhere I go. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah, there's no shortage of options. The trouble is always
everywhere.
finding a good option, to make sure you
Yep.
don't make a misstep when you finally do that coveted gear purchase. So
There's a little store I stop always in Duluth, Marine General.
Marine
Ever
General,
been there?
yes. Oh yeah.
He's got so much stuff compact and I'm like,
It's
oh,
amazing.
there's stuff everywhere here.
Amazing the amount of stuff that they
Yeah,
fit
I
in
love
that
it.
space.
I love it.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
it's
never
like a
been to that
treasure hunt.
store.
You never know, like what you come around, you look around the corner, and there's more like 25 more lures stacked in, and
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. You
it's
look up, you
nuts.
look down, and there's more of everything.
Yeah, and if you don't see it, somehow they've got it
Find another
somewhere
place.
else. They'll find a little nook and cranny that it's sticking in. Yeah, that
Do you
place
remember
is
that
awesome.
store in Park Rapids, Jason, that we went to? That it was this giant outdoor and tackle store in Park Rapids.
Yeah, I know. Dave will tell you what the
Yeah,
name
I'm
of
sure.
that place was,
But
the Outpost or something. I'm
yeah,
not
but
getting that right.
it was this giant store, and we're like, I've never seen so much stuff in my life. And then they're like, oh, we have the warehouse too. And I'm like, what is this place? Right? Yeah, there's so much stuff.
All right, I suppose it's time. I mean, I'm not saying it disappoint. I'm disappointed because it's maybe we're getting to the end. I'm not disappointed to hear the
Well,
story.
we can cut the show off, and then we'll talk after.
Yeah, we usually do.
We do that too. Yes, we do that too.
So back to Jeff now. He had a question.
Okay. So we always ask all the guests, we call them legends, but your best or most memorable ice fishing story. And I'm sure as a guide you have so many to choose from, but One of your top ones that you tell all the time.
Well, I kind of struggle with that because I do have so many. I mean, I'll give you a clip, real small clip of a couple of them.
Okay.
So one of the trout lakes I was on, out of one hole this one day, one hole, I got 16 lake trout out of one hole.
Wow.
And I was like, this is amazing. This is unbelievable. And there was a gal who wasn't quite catching as much as I was. And I said, hey, just come on over here and stand in this hole. And she started catching them in that hole.
Wow.
So, I mean, that kind of that. And then I thought of, I was up on an island one time with my grandkids playing. They're right close to my ice shacks. And I could hear some commotion over by the shack. And my wife loves to fish. She doesn't fish in the shack at all. She makes me look horrible because she's fishing outside the entire time. And I better have at least 40 holes for her to walk around, because she likes walking around, hole to hole and dropping and just kind of thing. Well, she got I think it was one of those 28.25-inch walleyes. And just looking back over, and it was too far for me to run to go help her, but my daughter was there and her boyfriend, and I just looked over and I seen them handle it, and I seen them handle the whole thing and the woohoos and taking the picture and all that kind of stuff and putting the fish back. And I was with my grandkids. That was another quick, brief one. But one I want to touch base back on was...
Wait a minute, what was it? What'd she catch?
28.25-inch walleye. Sorry.
Okay.
Just one of those average fish.
I just said 28.25, but I didn't finish what kind of fish it was. I understand that now. But so yeah, she caught a nice walleye there at her ice shack. But one that sticks out, like I guess the longest amount of time was, remember I was getting back to that snow machine that I bought, that old Panther, that one lung Panther. So I was coming back out of a trout fishing lake with some friends and their dad and stuff. And on the way back out, we have a different trail now, mind you, but we'd always go along this creek that was open in a lot of places all the time.
Sure.
And coming back out, I got my brother on the back of my snowmobile that I purchased with my hard-earned money, that one lung that if it died, we'd sunk to the bottom probably. But so we're coming back out of there, and he was on the back, and I looked behind us, and there's a little bit of open water breaking up as we're going. And I was like, oh boy, but we made it out of there. And on the ride back, it was just the memory of the whole day. I got to go fishing, took my brother out for the day on my snowmobile, and we just had a grand old time. So I guess pick a legend, but that'd be my quick top 3 legends, I guess.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's always something special. Like I know you mentioned, like, being able to bring your brother out, and I know you're a guide, so that's probably where it comes from. But there's something fun about sharing it with others. Like you have this excitement for it, and you just, it's great to bring somebody else, whether it's your kid or your brother or, somebody that really like, hey, this is really, really cool and fun to do. So that's awesome.
I agree. Like other than Jeff, Sean, and Dave, if I bring someone out or I go fishing with someone, I'm actually just as happy if they catch way more fish than me.
Yeah.
Me too.
Not these
me
guys,
too.
not these cats that I fish with regularly. That's a different deal. But everybody else, I'd rather have them catch the fish. I really would.
Yeah, having either my grandkids or my wife or customers, having them catch fish. I can go and catch fish anytime, but I'd rather have other people catching fish and seeing the smile on their face and me take the picture of them holding the fish. I would rather do that than me catching all the fish.
Well, we really, really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us tonight and to share your wisdom with us and your information. It's been really, really great to do that. We're really glad you reached out to us to see about being on the show, because we certainly need more expertise on this show.
For sure. Yes. We need more than just us, because
yeah, I've been watching, I'm listening to a lot of different podcasts and stuff, and I listened to yours, and I was like, I really like you guys. You keep it low, it's fun, it's light, it's not so, serious like a musky fisherman type thing, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. It's good to keep it that way, because you can put a smile on people's face, and people, I think, can relate a lot more when you guys are talking about, just average Joe stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, you guys do a great job.
All right. Well, on that note.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, on that note, I am going to open up this beer. 'Cause I did this beer. So
All right, let's do
I
it.
bought it I got to show it to you guys. So it's
Yeah, what do you got?
So it's a Stone. It's a Down Understruck IPA, a double IPA with Australian hops. It's 9% alcohol.
Holy
Wow.
cats.
I put this sucker outside. It did not freeze.
Wow.
So
Jason would
It's
not
a good
like-
ice fishing beer.
Yeah.
yeah, it's not going to freeze by the hole. I'll tell you that. So I'm not too much. I'm more of I can have a Michelob Ultra or a Coors Light. You know, I keep it kind of low key for beers, but I seen it and I thought I've never seen that beer before. I got to try it. Oh yeah.
Now, is there a story on the side of that can? Jeff always has beers with stories.
That has to have a story.
It is a thunderous IPA. Australia is well known for being the home of flora and fauna that exist nowhere else on Earth. Among these creatures, both creepy and cuddly, you can also encounter some unique, highly sought after hop varieties. Only Oz can you find Galaxy, Ella, and Vic Secret hops, which lend striking tropical fruit, citrus, and peach flavors to this booming behemoth of an IPA. Originally released to commemorate our 19th anniversary, this is a recipe that's garnered constant rumblings requesting its return, as steady and powerful as the sound of didgeridoo.
That's that big weird thing that they play that makes.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I didn't know what that thing was.
Didgeridoo, yeah. Well, Jason doesn't like those. I enjoy them, but he often calls them carpet beers.
It
So
tastes like new. You know how new carpet smells? That's what that beer tastes like to me.
I thought you were going to say it tastes like
So-
new carpet, and I'm like, how do you know what new carpet
It
smells
tastes.
like?
It tastes like new carpet smells.
So there is a beer up here. Everybody wants to go straight to like the Labatt's Blue or something like that, but there is one. It's called Sleeman's Original Draft, and it's made in Guelph, Ontario. That is a really good beer, really good middle of the line beer. Not too heavy, you know what I mean? Not too light. It's a good beer.
All right, not hoppy.
Not too hoppy,
Yeah.
right?
I never thought of the angle of like if it has enough alcohol in it, it doesn't freeze. That's interesting. Although you have to be careful with that because I had one that was like 9% once, and you have to be able to do the podcast. You can't, 9% alcohol is a lot. You got to be able to talk by the end.
Yeah,
So.
you're not having a half dozen of those, you know.
No, not at all.
No, not at all. Man, Jeff, that was great to hear from Jeff. That dude
It was
is
great.
awesome. He knows his stuff. I want to go fishing with him. We're going to have to figure that out. He's got trouts, he's got walleyes, and he's got the Canadian wilderness. So how cool is that?
It's very cool.
Well, hey, that's all for tonight. We're gonna have to do a catch-up episode. We're a little short on time tonight, and but we still managed to talk for like 45. This episode will still be like an hour and 40, long, hour and a half long. So you will not feel shorted, but you will be missing some information. So we're going to do another episode. We're going to do some catch up on stuff. We probably need to do a non-guest episode just to get caught up on a few things. And but we'll look forward to talking to everybody down the road. Tight lines.
Cheers.
You've been listening to the Hard Water Fishing Show with Jeff and Jason.
Say goodbye.
One of the most unique podcasts on the planet, where we talk about tactics, gear, and ice fishing legends. We'll be back soon.
Bye-bye.
Till then, signing off.
Bye-bye.